everyone, my name is Rafal and I would like to welcome you to another episode how I create this headshot, and I just want to talk about this image. There are several challenges which I have to overcome in order to create this image, and I would like to kind of go for them because this is hopefully going to help you with your headshot photography. And I think there are several things which I think they're very important to discuss because I deeply believe this is going to extremely elevate your headshot work. So again, we're going to go through my entire lighting setup. We're going to go, of course, through my entire gear list. And then at the very end, we're going to go through my entire retouching process. There are several things which I had to basically deal here, but we're gonna go through this step by step and I'm gonna show you exactly what I have done. So let's jump into behind the scene and let's kind of take a look at how my setup was basically put in place. So again, I shot this in my place and I've used again my typical lighting setup. I used my 2 deep octas. And in this particular case, there's few things which I think this is extremely important. This is something what I want to discuss. Probably you guys gonna notice I have used the power on very kind of like a limited way. It was 1/64 of the power. And this was because I have to basically balance my lighting on the subject to the background. And as you guys probably can see, I use my LCD projector to basically reflect and actually create a background, and I didn't use on any white, I would say, screen. I use my gray wall, which basically also kind of works really well to projecting the image to create the background. Also, if you guys probably gonna notice, the main light is fairly away from the subject, and in this particular case was about 2 meters away, and I had to do it because if I put my main light way too close, I have to increase my f-stops, and basically what happened, I would lose the background. So I have to basically balance it out, my lighting to the background. And this is, I would say, one of the biggest challenges whenever I shoot with projector. And as you guys probably can notice, my projector has only 1600 lumens, so it's not really strong. This is one of the most requested questions what I've been receiving from you guys whenever I post this type of image. What type of projector do I use and how strong it is? And honestly, this projector is very old. It's over 10 years old. You can buy it for about $100 online, so it's not something high-tech, high-end, and very powerful, but still works, and I really like it. I think shooting with projector is a little bit tricky, but as soon as you will figure it out and you know how to balance the lighting from the background and from the projector and basically balance out your lighting for the subject, you're golden and you can basically create amazing images. And I highly recommend it to try this technique because that can really elevate your headshots to completely another level. Going actually and talking a little bit more about the lighting, I also want to mention that I have to kill all the ambient light, which was, I would say, and was affecting my background. But in this particular case, I took that image from the place where I was shooting, and behind me there was another window which is fairly big and also give me additionally some little bit of fill light. So that's why she's really well lit. Plus I added, as I said, 2 speed lights with my softboxes. There was minimum power, but that just kind of gives me this really nice, I would say, Rembrandt lighting. And that's pretty much everything what I've used. On the top of that, you guys probably can see I also have reflector. It's my typical setup. I didn't change much here. The one difference what I've done it, again, I moved my lighting away from the subject to kill a little bit of light. Plus I use pretty much the minimum power of my speed lights. And this is very important in order to kind of, as I said, balance it out so I can have my background visible on the picture. Okay, so let's move on into the settings. Again, the same camera, Nikon D800 with my Nikon 70-200 VR2 lens. I have used in this case two Nikon SB910. Again, Alien Chrome Octa, 39 inches and 27 inches. And let's talk about the settings. So again, focal length 200 millimeters. This is standard how I approach my headshot photography. I want to make sure that the background is compressed. Shutter speed 1/25 of the second, f4, and this is mainly because I want to make sure that entire face is sharp. If you would shoot this 2.8 and if you would move or your subject would move, you might lose this sharpness, and this is always something which is difficult to deal with. And then you want to make sure you have your f-stops set up so your entire face is in focus, and then it's much easier to edit those images. And because also the subject is fairly away from the background, you're still gonna get really nice bokeh. ISO 250, I have to increase that again just to make this background more visible. And the white balance again was set up to my speed lights, and I set it up manually to 5000 Kelvin. So this is my setting. This is how this whole thing actually work, and this was the settings would basically help me out to basically make this image and make this background looks pretty cool. So as I said a few minutes ago, and I actually repeating myself, I want to make sure that the lighting on the subject is balanced out with the background lighting from the projector to make this kind of look visible. Okay, so let's jump into actual image and let's kind of take a look what kind of image came out straight from the camera. So you guys probably can see the background is still really nicely lit. The colors are pretty nice, even though I was shooting off my gray wall. I think this image would look a little bit different if I basically could reflect that background of white screen. You still can do it, but again, it's more expensive. You have to get the screen, and it's pain in the butt sometimes. So you can basically, I've decided to basically use only my wall, and it still worked really well. As you guys probably can see, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of issues with the hair. She had some pins in her hair, which I personally didn't like. But other than that, the makeup artist Candace did amazing job on her makeup. She also did this little pearls around just to kind of add it up a little bit to basically to this headshot and make this look a little bit more interesting and look more editorial. But there's definitely several things which need to be addressed. Okay, so let's go through entire retouching process, and you guys probably gonna notice I've done very subtle step each time, and I was addressing things which basically they were bugging me. And let's kind of analyze this image. So there's some issues on her skin. She was wearing some bracelet, and you guys can see some marks. Basically the skin still has some stuff. There is some hair on her face. There's some little pimples on her face. There is some deficiencies, I would say, with the makeup on her lips. As you guys probably can see on the top lip, there is some, actually I don't know what happened, but there's missing. The colors are kind of off. Also some issues with the nails. You guys probably can see there's something which needs to be kind of fixed and done. But so there's little things, and then we're gonna kind of go step by step through this entire process. So the first step in my retouching process is, of course, working on the most obvious stuff. And probably you guys can see I actually just missed the background. So the bottom has this like really dark line. I didn't really like it. Basically the projector was set up the way that, basically what happened, I kind of like didn't pay attention to it because I should kind of take a little bit lower angle, but I kind of missed that, and then there's this black line and I had to basically fix this. So basically what I've done, I basically just took the bottom, stretch it a little bit, and because it's a kind of cinematic look and the background is very, I would say, out of focus, whenever you do something like this, nobody will notice. So this is kind of the easiest way to actually fix this stuff. And then also on the corner, you guys probably can see there is a little bit of light from my kicker light, so also I kind of removed that. The next step, what I've done, of course, is general cleaning. So I went through everything around her face and clean up all the little hair, little pimples. You guys can see some flyovers, just the most obvious one, and I basically just removed. Also, she had a little ring in her nose. I'm not a big fan of those stuff, so I actually decided to remove this. So just to kind of make this image looks a little bit more clean. And also there's a lot of stuff as in her hair, which was really messy. I also should pay attention to it, and we technically supposed to have some lacquer and spray and kind of like spray it up a little bit just to kind of make this whole thing even. Again, didn't notice that, and then I had to basically just deal with this in post-production. But it's good sometimes to have those little things and pay attention to those details, because that's going to save us a little bit of time in post-production. But again, if we have time and we have nothing else to do and we basically want to learn how to fix some of those stuff, maybe sometimes it's a good thing to leave it and just kind of deal with this in post-production. So we clean it. I cleaned this a little bit just to kind of make this look a little bit better. Still, we're going to work on it in next steps, but that was actually the first step. Also, I cleaned up this little mark on her arm, which I think she was wearing some kind of bracelet, and I just want to make sure I just kind of removed it because it didn't look pretty good. Okay, so the next step was basically dodge and burn. This is my typical kind of approach, and you guys can see there's a lot of discoloration underneath her eyes. There's some stuff going on her forehead. There is some stuff on her arm, so I had to just make sure this whole thing is kind of even out and basically looks a little bit better. The next step was, of course, working on her eyes. I just want to make sure they pop a little bit more, because I had that window behind me. There was a lot of light coming in, so as you guys probably can see, her retinas, they look pretty good. I just have to make sure that they pop a little bit more, and I have to just give them a little bit more brightness. And again, I work a little bit more on her eyebrows to darken them a little bit, just so the eyes just kind of pop a little bit more. So that was after. This was before. This is after. And as you guys probably can see, looks a little bit better, and just kind of make her eyes just look like they pop more, and they have way more impact on the viewer. Okay, so next step was the color toning and color grading. So my typical, I would say, approach is working on the colors, then we work on the contrast, we decrease a little bit of the saturation of the image, and of course I added a little bit of contrast through curves, and then I went to my basically filters, and then there's those basically in camera raw filter you can adjust a little bit actually colors, and I actually adjust a little bit of colors for the background. So that was my color grading and toning. The next step in this entire process, I worked a little bit on her hair, because I found it was a little bit kind of messy, and they basically all over the place. There's no symmetry, there's no smoothness, so I just want to make sure this whole thing looks a little bit better. So I use basically liquefying to kind of shape them a little bit more and make them look a little bit, I would say, nice and smooth, and then there's a little bit of symmetry in this image, which definitely makes this image looks a little bit better. The next step, actually I work even more on this, so I just clean it up even more, just to kind of give the hair nice line around it, so you guys don't really see all those flyovers. And again, we took this to another level, which makes the hair look much more cleaner. The next step, I actually remove those pins in her hair. Actually, I didn't know what I should do, and my wife basically, she take a look at it and she's like, just remove this, because it's just kind of distracting and just take away from her eyes. So the attention kind of goes more to those pins than to her eyes. And I actually completely agree. I was looking at this image, and then there's something which kind of like couldn't make me focus on the right spot on the image. And then basically she told me that those pins, it just takes away my attention from her eyes to those pins. So I decided to remove them. It was pretty easy process. I used pretty much just the clone stamp and then just kind of make them disappear. Okay, so the next step was the second run of dodge and burn. As you guys can see, this whole thing was very just a gentle. There's some stuff on her, pretty much her skin, especially whenever you're doing some color adjustment and then you basically dealing with some color grading. The colors, they're getting shifted all over the place, so you want to make sure you're doing this the second run of the dodge and burn to just make this whole thing even more. Even though she had really good skin, the makeup was flawless, but you still kind of throughout the retouching process you have to address this stuff to kind of make this just perfect. Okay, so the next thing, I work on the lip a little bit. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. There was something going on which you know, I think what happened was that the makeup artist kind of missed the spot, or I don't know, she touched it, or there's some other issue. But you guys can definitely, there's just a little spot here which has different color, different tone, and I've decided to basically fix this to make this lips look even. Okay, so the next step, I actually use liquefying, because that line in her hair was a little bit kind of like not even, and I just want to make sure that this whole thing looks kind of clean and symmetrical. So I decided to actually fix this a little bit. So just a little adjustment, but I think just kind of again takes this image to another level. And the last step was creating kind of vignetting around the image, just to kind of make her pop a little bit more, and that was pretty much end of my retouching process. So let's take a closer look. Let's uncheck all this stuff and see how this whole thing looked before and after. So this is the finished image, and that was actually when I started. So probably you guys can notice there's a lot of adjustments done, but again the background kind of stays the same. The foundation of the image pretty much kind of stays the same. We just kind of go through this process just to kind of clean up the hair, clean up the skin, create a little bit more dimension to the image, and basically that's what kind of took this image to another level. Okay, so I hope you guys like this video. I hope this kind of gives you a little bit of better understanding how the process look like. If you guys gonna have any specific questions, you guys gonna have any additional, I would say, concerns you would like to ask or add to this, please feel free to contact me. You know where to find me. I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. So feel free to leave the comment or contact me directly, and we kind of go from there. So thank you for watching. I hope you guys like this video. Stay tuned, and I'll chat with you guys very soon. Bye bye.